check his belt. You lay low and let me know what you find.
Yes, Queen! Slay! Slay! Slay your enemies! Ruler of one of the realms of men! Smite down those that oppose you!
Hello everyone, Quantumania, and today we will review the Season 10 premiere of Death Battle, my favorite web series of all time. Now, I love this show, how it delves and meshes together various different characters, the animation, emotion behind it, and by god, I love the music. In my perspective, Season 9 was great, the best season right next to 8 in fact. So needless to say, my expectations for this double-digit season are quite gigantic.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Overall, I believe this episode was good, like really good, with some stuff that I think holds it back just a little bit. I'm very happy that the breakdowns were less about numbers, stats, etc. and more about who these characters are as people, their backstories, equipment, powers, accomplishments. I love that. It would have been very easy to get very numbery while talking about physics-bending scientists, but I guess they figured that they do it so much that you don't really need numbers for things like grows smaller than ideas. The comedy was fine. Many episodes love to give Wiz and Boopstick a thing, a gag throughout the episode. And in this one, it was the latter trying to get sciencey by wearing backwards glasses and holding pizzas in his pocket. Talk about a hot pocket. Honestly, I thought Wit's reaction was the highlight to his whole thing, how scandalized and confused he got. I wonder if they saw the positive feedback from Aquaman. For a last non-specific thing, I really like the usage of classical music during the breakdowns. I don't know, I think it just fits with ambitious mad scientists. Hank Pym's section was really effective in presenting the character, again, not necessarily in a power scaling way, but more in a character focused way, going over his backstory, motivation, ever-growing list of achievements, and trivia. And most importantly, his psychological shortcomings followed by his recovery. I very much appreciated how respectfully they tackled the subject. It really helped make the character feel alive, dynamic, so much that his opponent probably would have always felt more boring by comparison. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they did the best they could to present Ray as interestingly as possible, and there was some fun stuff here and there, but it just felt kind of plain. Not saying that every character needs to have edge to be interesting, that's always going to be subjective after all, but Adam's more vanilla nature just didn't get me as much as Hank's breakdown, in both sense of the term. I did like the greater emphasis on gadgets and weapons versus Hank's more nature/cosmic oriented side of things. And Boopsy getting sticky over stuff that goes boom did get a chuckle out of me, but I don't know. I was expecting more Arrowverse references actually, with Legends of Tomorrow probably being the Adam iteration for most casuals. But all they did was like using 1, 2, 3 clips at the beginning and like the word legendary 3 times. Okay, I guess. Alrighty, now for the part that differentiates this video from a blog. The fight. First of all, awesome 3D backgrounds, very nice work with the sprites, and a very clever use of blending 2D and pixels. Although I would have liked more reaction shots in the former art style, just to get more acquainted with what comes next. The setup is interesting. Apparently, Hank is meant to be upset that Palmer doesn't recognize his work, tapping into his insecurity complex and all. But as it is presented in the animation, it kinda comes across as if Hank is very much against those who do knock. I guess you would get very along with Walter White. Then the way they just go grrr and punch each other, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like the best executed setup, but most of everything that comes afterwards is pretty great. We get some fun creative stuff with the objects on the desk, including a gag similar to the first Ant-Man movie, and I am glad they kinda restrained themselves with the MCUism as far as ping goes. And around this part we also get Hank instantly figuring out Ray's White Star shtick, to which the latter replies with,
"Everything we needed already existed. We just needed to be smart enough to put the pieces together."
Keep this line in mind, it'll be important later. But Hank figuring out Atom's tech right away is a good segue into aspect is done really well in this battle between some of the smartest of their own verses. It feels like they're constantly trying to outsmart each other, describing their own moves like anime characters playing chess and pulling on-the-fly strategies like Ant-Man hacking Atom's belt with his hands, Atom rearranging atomical structure of Hank's gun to disassemble it, or something as simple as Ray just squashing the ants to a normal size. followed by Hank and launches the car once he sees that size shifting doesn't work on way quite yet. I love this, more of this please. And in this very moment, the soundtrack goes from groovy if relatively tame 60s rock to triumphant epic orchestra once they go microscopic. Not actual size, it's a really good track. Not too up there in the I will literally clean my pants every time I listen department. But there's this one part that gets me really close to it. Listen to his motive. It's the Earth Mightiest Heroes theme song. I love that series, especially the iteration of Hank, who very much inspired the Dead Battle's take looks wise. Oh yeah, apparently there's some of Ant-Man MCU theme in there too, I guess. I wouldn't really know. But if that's true, talk about musically spoiling the victor though. And well, speaking of, it's commonly agreed upon that Season 10 starts with a very brutal death. For some apparently too gory, given how relatively light-hearted the fight had been up to this point. But I believe that's actually part of why it works. Sometimes that is indeed shocking and brutal. Plus they did foreshadow Hank definitely having a darker side despite the city motif. Also, it's actually foreshadowed by the ants getting closer and closer to Ray throughout the fight. First getting up on him, then messing with his belt, and finally messing with his orifices. Imagine his last thoughts being, I have a mouth and I can't scream. On the topic of blowing up, it's morbidly ironic how Ray worried about his experiments blowing him up when it turned out to be someone else's doing that for him. The image of the ants floating all around inside the Ray White Star shrinking effects is just a really morbid image, it's like a visual metaphor of Hank spray painting his signature all over Ray's corpse or something. It's subtle but effective. And I do think that Hank winning makes perfect sense too. He just had way more accomplishments as both a hero and a scientist. He didn't stop himself at just shrinking, but went over controlling ants, mastering AI, going beyond cosmic boundaries of what's possible, which gets us into my undeniably favorite part of all episode. From start to finish, there is an underlying message. Ant-Man vs. the Atom is an episode about innovation versus reutilization. Hank uses never seen before particles to go where no scientists or heroes have gone before. Ray uses a piece from an already known material that could shrink him just fine, but with limits. As Reddit user Simbi Hedgehog puts, Atom is fascinated by the pin particles, claiming he'd never seen something like this. Later on, he says that everything he needed to be the Atom was already there, Hank just had to put the piece together. Atom already had an advantage from the get-go with the White Dwarf star fragment. Meanwhile, Hank had to make the pin particles from scratch. He says they created something beyond the limits of human existence, and before he wins, he advises Atom,
You can't be afraid to think big.
What granted Hank his victory is his ability to think big, creating something entirely new instead of using existing things. Ray was limited because he did not go beyond the dwarf star and its properties, while Hank didn't have such problems since the pin particles were only limited by his own augmentations. So yet kids, don't be afraid to take risks in life or you will turn into a human piñata. I swear that was the last one. So yeah, a very good premiere episode. Sucks if these comparison things won't be colored anymore, it makes reading through them much more of a chore, but next time we have a fantasy themed episode with characters I'm not terribly familiar with. I mean, the last time that happened we got one of the best episodes in the whole show, so bring it on. I'm Mark of Krypton and hope I made your day slightly more pleasant. Oh boy.